The cemetery was still wet from the morning rain. The gray clouds hung low, and the smell of damp earth clung in the air. A little girl, no older than 9, clutched a wilted white rose in her trembling hands. Her big brown eyes, swollen from days of crying, stared at the coffin as it was lowered into the ground. Her father, the only person who had ever truly loved her, was gone. And as the final shovel of dirt hit the wooden box, she felt something inside her chest break. Her name was Emily. Just a child, fragile and innocent, yet life had already been cruel to her. Her mother had passed away when she was barely 3, leaving her father, David, to raise her alone. David wasn't rich, but he worked hard, pouring every ounce of love into raising Emily with kindness and dignity. She had grown up knowing she was cherished, no matter how little they had. But now, as mourners began to leave, Emily stood alone beside the grave, gripping her rose like it was the last thread tying her to her father. That's when her stepmother, Clara, approached. Clara had married David only a year earlier. Tall, elegant, and cold as ice, she had never hidden her dislike for Emily. At the funeral, she hadn't even pretended to comfort the girl. Instead, she wore a mask of false sorrow for the crowd while her eyes stayed sharp and calculating. Clara leaned down, her voice a hiss that no one else could hear. "It's over, Emily. Your father is gone. And so is your place in my house. You don't belong there anymore." Emily's lips quivered. But Daddy said. "Your father is dead," Clara interrupted sharply. "And I am his widow. That house, that life, it's mine now. You have nothing." With that, Clara straightened, turned on her heels, and walked away. Emily stood frozen, the words echoing in her ears. "Nothing." Hours later, after most of the mourners had left, Emily found herself standing outside the cemetery gates, a small backpack slung over her shoulder, the only bag Clara had allowed her to take. Inside it were a few clothes and the stuffed bunny her father had given her on her 7th birthday. She had nowhere to go. No relatives nearby, no friends old enough to help. The world suddenly felt enormous, cruel, and empty. She walked aimlessly through the streets, her shoes muddy, her hair wet from the drizzle. People passed her by, some giving her pitying glances, others ignoring her entirely. But Emily pressed on, her tiny legs trembling with exhaustion. All she wanted was to hear her father's voice one last time, to feel his hand holding hers. As she turned a corner near the edge of town, a sleek black car pulled up beside her. The tinted window rolled down, and a man in his 50s leaned out. His face was strong, lined with age but softened with kindness. He wore a dark suit, but his eyes, the same shade of brown as Emily's, glimmered with something she hadn't seen all day, concern. "Little girl," he called gently, "why are you out here all alone? Where's your family?" Emily froze. She didn't know what to say. No adult had asked her that question with real care since her father's passing. My daddy's gone," she whispered. "And my stepmother, she doesn't want me anymore." The man's jaw tightened. He stepped out of the car, his polished shoes splashing in a puddle. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Emily," she said timidly. He crouched down so he was eye level with her. "Emily. I knew your father. David and I grew up together. He was like a brother to me." His voice cracked slightly. "I didn't even know he had a little girl." Emily's eyes widened. "You knew Daddy?" "Yes," the man said softly. "I'm Richard. Richard Hale." Emily had no idea who he was, but the way he said her father's name, with respect and affection, made her chest ache in a good way. Richard glanced at her small backpack and the sadness etched into her face. He stood up, furious at the thought of Clara abandoning this child. Without hesitation, he extended his hand. "Emily, you're coming with me. You will never be alone again. I promise you that." Emily hesitated, then slowly reached out and placed her tiny hand in his. For the first time since her father's death, she felt a spark of safety. Richard Hale was not just a man in a suit. He was a self-made millionaire. He had built his fortune from nothing, rising from the same small neighborhood where he and David had once played as boys. He had everything: wealth, power, respect, but no children of his own. His wife had passed years ago, and though his mansion was grand, it was hollow. Empty. Lonely. When he brought Emily into his home, it was as though the cold walls warmed instantly. But life wasn't magically easy. Emily carried grief like a shadow. She missed her father terribly and had nightmares of Clara's cruel words. Some nights she would cry quietly into her pillow, afraid that if she made too much noise, Richard would send her away too. But Richard was different. He noticed. He would sit at the edge of her bed, listening, comforting her without judgment. "You're safe here, Emily," he would say. "This is your home now." Slowly, Emily began to heal. She enrolled in a new school, where she was shy at first but soon made friends who admired her resilience. Richard treated her not like a guest, but like the daughter he had always longed for. He attended every school recital, clapped the loudest at her achievements, and taught her lessons about life, honesty, and kindness that her father would have been proud of. Still, the past wasn't done with her. Clara, driven by greed, attempted to contest David's will. She wanted full control of everything. Even Emily's rightful inheritance. Court battles began, and for a little girl, the experience was terrifying. Sitting in a courtroom, facing the woman who had thrown her away, Emily felt the weight of the world again. But Richard never left her side. With his resources, he hired the best lawyers. More importantly, he taught Emily that no matter how cruel people could be, her worth was never tied to their opinion. She was her father's daughter, kind, strong, and brave. After months of battles, Clara's lies unraveled. The court ruled in Emily's favor, granting Richard guardianship and securing her father's savings for her future. Clara left the courthouse in disgrace, her power stripped away. Years passed. Emily grew up in Richard's care, blossoming into a young woman with a heart full of compassion. She excelled in school, not because she had the wealth of a millionaire behind her, but because she had the love and guidance she needed. She never forgot her father, but she also never forgot the man who had run in at her darkest moment and saved her from despair. One evening, on her high school graduation night, Emily stood on stage delivering her speech as valedictorian. Her voice trembled, not from fear, but from emotion. "When I was 9 years old, I thought my life had ended. I thought I had lost everything. But what I didn't know was that sometimes, when life takes something away, it also gives us someone we need. To Mr. Richard Hale, who became the father I lost, I love you. And I thank you for showing me that family is not just blood. Family is love." The audience erupted in applause. Richard sat in the front row, tears streaming down his face, his heart bursting with pride. The lesson of Emily's story is simple yet powerful: life can be unbearably cruel. People may abandon you, hurt you, or leave you when you need them most. But love has a way of finding us even when we least expect it. And when someone chooses to stand by you, not out of obligation, but out of compassion, that's where true family is found. Sparkles call to action for your channel, Sparkles. Friends, Emily's story reminds us that kindness can change lives. What do you think you would have done if you saw a child like Emily alone in the rain? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your perspective. And if stories like this touched your heart, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with others. Let's spread messages of hope and compassion together. This is your channel. Be kind always, the Blue Heart.